Have you ever wondered if true financial peace is possible? After decades of hard work, raising children, and weathering life's storms? Why does money sometimes feel like a quiet worry in the back of our minds? Even after retirement, even when we thought we'd done everything right? How do we find freedom in our finances when the future feels uncertain and the cost of everything seems to rise higher than our peace of mind? Is it too late to change our money story and leave behind a legacy that truly reflects who we are? Today, we're not just talking about dollars and cents. We're exploring something deeper. How to stop worrying about money in your 60s. Not as an accountant might explain it, but as a friend would share it, honestly, gently, and with heart. Because money at this stage of life, it's no longer about status or wealth. It's about security, dignity, freedom, and peace of mind when you lay your head down at night. Maybe you've asked yourself, did I save enough? Will my money last? Can I still afford to travel, to help my grandchildren, to live without fear? Those are real questions. And you're not alone. In fact, millions of Americans over 60 feel the same way. That quiet, constant hum of financial anxiety, even in the middle of otherwise peaceful days. But here's the truth most financial gurus forget to mention. Peace isn't a number in a bank account. Peace is a mindset, a way of seeing your money not as a ticking clock, but as a trusted companion, one you can walk alongside, gently, confidently, even if you've had missteps along the way. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Harold, 67 years old, retired electrician, father of 3, grandfather of 5. Harold had worked his whole life with his hands. He built homes, repaired wires, climbed ladders well into his 50s. By the time he retired, he had a modest pension, some savings, and a heart full of worry. You see, Harold had never been taught how to feel safe with money. He was raised in a home where money was tight, where bills came with tension and every dollar was stretched until it screamed. So even when he had enough, Harold never quite felt enough. He cut coupons even when he didn't have to. He said no to trips that he could have afforded. He stayed up at night calculating numbers over and over again, as if peace could be found by rechecking the math. But one evening, sitting on his back porch, watching the sunset paint golden light across his little garden, Harold had a thought. What if, he whispered to himself, I've already won the game and just forgot to stop playing? That question, simple, quiet, almost silly, changed something in him. Because maybe you, like Harold, have spent your whole life running, saving, working, sacrificing, and forgot to look up and realize you've arrived, not perfectly, not with millions, but with enough to start breathing again, with a roof over your head, people who love you, and more wisdom in your heart than most financial advisors ever learn in school. Harold didn't become a millionaire after that day. He didn't suddenly unlock secret investments or sell everything to downsize. What he did was even braver. He gave himself permission to trust what he'd already built. He let go of shame. He began to enjoy his money, slowly, wisely, and with gratitude. He took his grandkids out for ice cream. He bought better shoes for his morning walks. He finally replaced that rattling old water heater, not because it was broken, but because he could. And something incredible happened. His life didn't change overnight, but his heart did. The panic softened, the tension lifted, and in its place came a kind of quiet strength, like standing in a wide open field, no longer running, but resting, knowing he was okay. Friend, maybe you're like Harold. Maybe you've done more right than you give yourself credit for. Maybe your worries are just echoes of an old chapter and not a sign of failure. It's okay to worry. It's human, especially when the world feels uncertain. But what if this chapter of life, your 60s and beyond, is meant to be something else entirely? Not a time of restriction, but a not fear, but fullness, not scarcity, but trust. A trust in yourself, in the seeds you've already planted, in the wisdom you've earned through every challenge, every paycheck, every sacrifice. Money doesn't define your worth. It doesn't measure your love, your impact, your character, or your joy. And even if you don't have as much as you once hoped for, you still have the power to write a new story, starting now. Not by doing everything at once, but by taking small steps, by changing the way you see your finances, from fear to freedom. So here's what we'll explore in this journey together. How to shift your mindset around money. How to simplify your finances without stress. How to make peace with the past and build a future that feels safe and steady. And most importantly, how to live with joy, generosity, and clarity, no matter what your balance sheet says. Because after everything you've given to this world, you deserve peace. You deserve rest. You deserve to stop worrying about money and start living the life you've earned. Ready to begin? In the next chapter, we'll talk about the money mindset shift that can transform how you feel about your finances. Not someday, but today. Because peace of mind isn't something you chase, it's something you choose. And that choice starts here. Let's take a deep breath together. Because today isn't about panic, it's about peace. And peace, especially in our 60s and beyond, begins with how we think about money. Not just how much we have, but how much we trust ourselves to use it wisely. You see, most people believe money worries come from not having enough, but often the deeper issue is not feeling enough, not feeling prepared, not feeling in control, not feeling like it's safe to rest. But here's a truth many people don't hear enough in their lifetime. You can feel financially safe without being rich. You can feel peace without a perfect retirement account. Because peace isn't a number, it's a mindset. Imagine your financial life like a garden. In your younger years, you were planting seeds of work, savings, learning. Some seeds thrived, some didn't. There were dry seasons, storms, and even a few weeds. But you kept tending. You showed up again and again. Now here you are, in the season of harvest. Not everything bloomed exactly the way you hoped. But that doesn't mean your garden is empty. Look around. There's more growing here than you think. Maybe you've got a modest pension, a little savings tucked away, a house nearly paid off, Social Security arriving each month. It may not feel like abundance by the world's standards, but is it enough to feed your life, to nourish your soul, to warm the hearts of those you love? Then friend, you already have wealth, not the kind the headlines talk about, but the kind that lasts. So let's talk about how to nurture that wealth, not through risky moves or sleepless nights, but with small, steady habits that build confidence and calm. Because just like a well-kept garden, your finances thrive with simplicity. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in your 60s is this: from complexity to clarity. Too many people carry clutter in their financial lives. Old accounts they forgot about, credit cards with confusing interest rates, subscriptions they no longer need, investments they don't understand. All that noise creates stress. It steals peace. So here's your first gentle challenge. Simplify, not all at once, but one step at a time. Start with this question: what do I truly need to feel safe and steady each month? List it out. Rent or mortgage, groceries, medications, utilities, a bit for joy. This is your foundation. Then ask, what can I let go of to protect this foundation? Sometimes it's an unused storage unit, a cable package you never watch, a second car that just sits. Each small step adds up, and with each choice you begin to prune your financial garden, removing the overgrowth so what matters can flourish. And here's something else. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You've carried so much alone for so long, but there is strength in asking questions. There is wisdom in seeking support. A trusted advisor, a family member with financial knowledge, or even a community class at your local library. There are people who want to help you feel confident, You don't have to do this alone. And no question is silly. You deserve answers and peace without judgment. There's another powerful shift I want to share today. One that sounds simple but runs deep. From fear to stewardship. Fear tells us to cling, to shrink, to hide our money under a mattress and never touch it. But stewardship, that's different. Stewardship means trusting yourself to care for what you have, not recklessly, but purposefully, to spend with love, to save with intention, to give, even a little, with joy. One woman I met, Louise, age 71, had lived through a difficult divorce and raised 3 kids on a secretary's salary. When she retired, she was terrified. She checked her bank account every single morning. She kept stacks of receipts in drawers just in case. But one day she had a revelation. She said to me, "I've survived every financial storm I've ever faced. Why do I still act like the next one will break me?" That day she chose stewardship. She set a clear monthly budget. She allowed herself fun money, of $50 a month just to enjoy without guilt. She began volunteering once a week, finding joy beyond money, and she smiled more, slept better, even started painting again. You see, peace didn't come from more dollars. It came from less fear. So ask yourself, what small habit can I begin this week that brings more clarity to my money? Maybe it's organizing your bills into one folder. Maybe it's reviewing your bank statements with a cup of tea instead of dread. Maybe it's canceling a card that no longer serves you, or setting up automatic payments for peace of mind. One seat at a time, one step forward, because the goal isn't to become a financial wizard. The goal is to feel calm, confident, free, and yes, it is possible. You've already weathered the hardest storms of life. You have what it takes. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore something deeper. The emotional weight money can carry. Fear, shame, regret, and how to gently lay that weight down. Because true financial peace doesn't come just from changing your habits. It comes from healing your heart. And that healing starts with a little grace. You're not behind. You're right on time. And your best chapter, it might be just beginning. Have you ever looked back on a financial decision and thought, if only I had known better? Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a loan that lingered too long, money lent to someone who never returned it, or simply trusting the wrong person at the wrong time. Almost everyone carries a money story wrapped in some form of regret, and for many of us in our 60s and beyond, that story runs deep. But here's what I want you to remember today. You are not your past decisions. You are not your credit score, not your savings account, not the zeros or the missing commas. You are a living, breathing story of strength and survival. And just like a well-worn path through the woods, your footsteps have meaning, even if they took a few wrong turns. Sometimes we think financial peace is only for the people who did everything right, the ones who retired early, paid off their homes, or had guidance from the start. But let me tell you something. Peace doesn't ask for perfection. It only asks that we show up now with honesty and grace. Because whether you made 5 bad money choices or 50, you're still here, still learning, still capable of rewriting your story. One of the hardest things to release in our later years is financial shame. It doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it hides in the way we avoid certain conversations or smile and say we're fine, when the truth is, we're worried. But here's a gentle truth. Shame can't survive the light. When we name it, speak it, bring it out of hiding, it begins to loosen its grip. I once met a man named Richard. He was 67, living in a quiet apartment with his dog, Max. Richard had worked 35 years as a mechanic. Hard work, honest work. But after a stroke, he retired early, and the bills began to pile. "I feel like I failed," he told me one afternoon, eyes lowered, voice quiet. "I should have had more saved. I should have done better." But I asked him something he hadn't heard before. Did you do your best with what you knew at the time? He looked up, paused, and tears welled in his eyes. Because the answer was yes. And maybe that's true for you too. Maybe you made choices based on survival, on love, on hope, or simply because no one ever taught you different. That doesn't make you foolish, it makes you human. And now, you have a chance to forgive yourself, not because what happened was okay, but because you deserve peace more than punishment. This is your life, and your future still holds possibility. Let's talk about fear too. Fear is sneaky. It tells you to keep checking your bank account 10 times a day. It whispers that one wrong move will ruin everything. It makes you feel like you're always just one step away from disaster. But here's what fear forgets. You have wisdom now. You've walked through life long enough to know what truly matters. And that wisdom, it's more powerful than panic. So how do we begin healing? Start by telling yourself the truth, gently. Yes, this is where I am. Yes, I wish things were different. But no, I will not let fear define the rest of my journey. Write a letter to your younger self, to the you who made those decisions. Tell them what you've learned. Thank them for trying. Forgive them. And then write a second letter to your future self, the one 5 years from now. What kind of peace do you want them to have? What kind of story do you want to leave behind? This isn't just financial planning. It's emotional healing. It's reclaiming your voice. You see, money is never just about money. It's about security, freedom, dignity, legacy. And when we untangle our emotions from old debts, past mistakes, or what could have been, we free ourselves to live now, with joy. One woman, Irene, told me she had $300 in the bank and thought that meant she'd never feel rich. But every Sunday, she hosted a family dinner. Her grandchildren laughed on the back porch. Her hands smelled of rosemary and warm bread. I realized, and she said, that my wealth lives in the moments I create. Isn't that beautiful? Because the real currency of life is connection, kindness, peace of mind, and that kind of wealth, no stock market can touch it. So if you're still holding on to guilt or shame around money, take this moment to release it. You don't need to carry it into your next chapter. You've done more than survive. You've grown, you've stretched, you've loved. And now you get to rest, not in fear, but in forgiveness. And from that rest, you can begin again, calmly, wisely, and fully awake. Because no matter where you've been, there is always a way forward. And in our final part together, we'll explore what that forward can look like. A life of meaning, of legacy, and of joy that goes far beyond dollars and cents. Because true wealth isn't what you own. It's what you leave behind and what you live with today. There's a quiet kind of reflection that visits us in our later years. Not loud, not urgent, just a gentle tap on the shoulder that asks, what truly lasts? We've spent decades working, saving, providing. We worried about bills, budgets, balances. We gave so much of ourselves to keep everything afloat. And now, in this softer season of life, we begin to ask different questions. Not how much do I have, but have I lived well? Not what can I still gain, but what will I leave behind? At this stage, money shifts from being a chase to becoming a choice to live lighter, to give with heart, to spend on what truly matters and release the rest. Because here's the truth, no one prints on a statement. You are already rich if you're surrounded by love. If you can laugh, remember, forgive, if you can sit on a porch as the sun sets and feel a sense of calm, that's wealth. True financial peace doesn't always come from a bigger portfolio. Sometimes it comes from a smaller worry, a simpler routine, a quiet trust in yourself, and in the path you've walked. Yes, maybe you didn't save as much as you planned. Maybe you made a few wrong turns, but you also raised a family, worked with honor, loved deeply, and survived storms no one else could see. You're still here, still learning, still offering wisdom the world quietly craves. And maybe now it's time to share that wisdom, to let go of guilt and give yourself grace, to stop measuring your worth by your wallet, because your real legacy won't be in numbers. It will be in moments. The stories you tell, the kindness you leave behind, the lessons you pass on, gently, generously, without judgment. So today, give yourself permission to breathe a little easier, to trust that you have enough, to believe that peace isn't just possible, it's yours to claim. And if this message brought you comfort, if it reminded you that you are more than your money, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's still carrying silent fears about the future. And if you believe peace, purpose, and dignity belong in every chapter of life, click subscribe. Not just for more words like these, but to remind yourself week after week that your story still matters. Because it does, deeply, and always will.